Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and in today's video I am going to talk to you about all the books that I kind of plan on reading in 2020 that aren't new releases from 2020 but that kind of have been released either in 2019 or earlier, and that I'm just feeling like I'm missing out on them by not reading them. So yeah, I'm going to tell you all about those. First is The Kings of the Wild by Nicholas East, which is the first book I think in a series, but I definitely want to try the first book because I've heard it's hilarious. And this just follows this band of old warriors that used to be really famous in their day, apparently in their world, but now they've just gotten old. But then the daughter of one of them is kidnapped, and so they have to go on a journey to get her back. And I don't know, it just sounds like a lot of fun, and like it's going to twist a lot of tropes of the fantasy genre on its head, and I just think it sounds really interesting. Then I have The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I read Circe at the beginning of 2019, and I've been meaning to pick up The Song of Achilles ever since then, but I just never got around to it, especially with my book buying ban and so on. But I actually already plan on reading this in January, so this is definitely going to happen, and I'm so excited to get to it finally. This, for all of you who don't know, is a retelling of the Iliad, and it follows Patroclus and Achilles' love story. Then I have A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, and I'm not sure how smart it is that I'm going to read this book, but it's been on my TBR for ages, and I want to read more non-fantasy books this year anyway, so I think this might be a good place to start, to just get the worst out of the way, because apparently it's a whole sob fest. Then I have the Book of the Ancestor trilogy by Mark Lawrence, the first book being Red Sister. Of course, I'm only really planning on reading the first book, and then if I like it, I'm going to continue on, hopefully read the whole trilogy right away so that I don't add to my series TBR. But I just heard a lot of really good things about this. It follows assassin nuns, I think, also kind of set in a type of post-apocalyptic world that's getting colder and colder. So the place where humans can live is getting less and less. And I really love when fantasy stories add like natural causes to why everything is going to shit instead of magical causes, and instead of fighting against a big bad. So yeah, that's something that I'm also really excited to pick up. Another fantasy series that I might want to pick up is The Witcher. I just binge watched the entire first season of the Netflix show yesterday, and I mean, it was enjoyable, I guess, but wasn't too impressed. But then again, I stopped watching Game of Thrones after season 1 because I disliked the first season so much, and then I picked up the book, The Game of Thrones, and it's ended up being one of my favorite series of all time. So I'm hoping the same is the case for The Witcher, and it just piqued my interest to pick up the books. So yeah, I want to pick up at least the first book, which I think is The Last Wish, which is a short story collection, so it shouldn't be too hard to get through. Then I have a first book in a series by one of my all-time favorite authors, and that is The Liar Thief by Jennifer Fallon. I do not know what the series is called, but I think it's a new series set in the same world. I mean, not really new because it's a few years old already, but it's a new series set in the same world as the Demon Child trilogy and the Hydron Chronicles, which are my favorite two trilogies by her. So yeah, I really have to finally pick this up again. Along the same lines of picking up books by my favorite authors, I also want to read more of Juliet Marillier again. I do not really have any certain books in mind aside from finishing the series that I started by her, but I just love her writing and I really want to get back into her, so that's another plan. A standalone book that's on my TBR, which you will know if you saw my goals for 2020 video, is Le Morte d'Arthur by Sir Thomas Malory. I finally want to read this, especially since I enjoyed the Guinevere Deception so much this year, and it's an Arthurian retelling, and I feel like it's kind of silly that I've read a few Arthurian retellings by now, but I still haven't read the original. Of course, this isn't the original because the stories have existed longer, but this is what most people base their Arthurian retellings on. Then I also want to finally read The Rhythmist by Brandon Sanderson, which I think is one of his YA standalone novels, which I have so many books by Brandon Sanderson that I haven't read yet, which is kind of embarrassing considering that he's basically one of my favorite authors, like one of my top 3 favorite authors. I really need to get to that. Also by Brandon Sanderson, I need to finally finish the Reckoner series with Calamity. I'm only missing Calamity. The first one is Steelheart in the Reckoner series, and this is his YA take on superheroes. But it's not really superheroes, it's just like everyone suddenly woke up one day during the Calamity and some people suddenly had superpowers, but those superpowers also turned them evil. So everyone with superpowers isn't a hero but actually a villain. Next, with continuing on finishing a series, I have The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. The first one is of course Eye of the World. I do plan on finishing the whole series this year, but we'll see if I will actually manage to do that. More finishing series. I want to finally read The Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien, which is the 3rd book in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Yes, I'm aware it wasn't originally meant to be a trilogy, but that's how it was published, so that's what I'm going to say it is. So yeah, it's just really embarrassing that I haven't read this yet, and I need to finally get to it. Also, a 3rd book in a trilogy that I need to read in 2020 is The Empire of Ashes by Anthony Ryan, which is the 3rd book in the Draconis Memoria series, the 1st book being The Waking Fire. And this is a kind of steampunk fantasy novel with dragons, and basically you have people that can inject dragon blood, and depending on which type of dragon's blood they inject, they get different powers. So like a little bit along the lines of how in Mistborn you have to drink different, so a little bit along the lines of how in Mistborn you have to digest different metals to get specific powers, but the powers in here aren't as many and they're very different. And then the last book I have is Tales from the Shadow Market by Cassandra Clare, which is her 3rd short story collection, and I just really need to read this before Chain of Iron comes out. Is it Chain of Iron or Chain of Gold? Chain of Gold, I think, is the 1st book. Because I think some of these short stories already feature characters from The Last Hours, so yeah, I just need to finish it already. And that was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Tell me which books you need to like kind of catch up with in 2020 that were published ages ago. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribe. All the links to my social medias always are in the description box down below, so go and check those out, and I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!